Welcome to SmithWeekly Discussions, an occasional program for our members of SmithWeekly Research. Please note this program is a private discussion and everything contained herein is for entertainment and educational purposes only. With that, we hope you're in a comfortable position, along with your favorite beverage, to enjoy the discussion. We remind our audience to examine our show notes attached to each of our shows to better understand how our program functions. Before we get into our discussion, we want to say thanks for questions coming from our audience of Smith Weekly, including Jeff S., Gordon S., Jackie A., and Mark R. On the program today is a returning guest. Mr. Terry Lynch is with us for this episode. Terry is the CEO of Power Metallic Mines. The company is focused on advancing the NISK polymetallic project near the James Bay region in Quebec, Canada, where the deposit includes nickel, copper, cobalt, and PGMs. The company is currently working to expand discovery, land positioning, and conduct initial mineralogy work ahead of early stage economic studies and metallurgical work. Power Metallic Mines is listed on the Toronto Venture Exchange under the symbol PNPN and also on the US OTC markets under the symbol PNPNF. Terry, good to have you back on the program. Welcome.
Andrew, great to be here. Always a pleasure to talk to you guys.
Yeah, Terry, thanks for that. We appreciate you coming back and talking with us and giving us an update on the company. Well, why don't we start off here? I think jump right into field work here. You guys have an ongoing summer work program to expand on the Lion Zone. You guys are doing work over at Tiger and also at the NISK main deposit area, among potentially some regional testing as well. Talk about the current status there, the results so far coming out of that program, and then remaining work under this campaign.
Yeah, so a pretty exciting summer for us in two fashions. Obviously, the drill program is one, the land acquisition is another. We'll get to that in a sec. So let's talk about the drilling. So we've got 100,000 meters drill program that's in front of us. This summer, we fully financed, by the way. We basically drilled 17,000 meters, 34 holes. We last week, a week Monday, maybe it's 2 weeks Monday now. It's all blending together. That we reported our first assays from the summer program. So 5 holes, pretty great results, I would say. Two serious holes of over 20 meters of 4.5% copper equivalent. So those don't come along every day. And then we actually showed that the line zone also extended another 100 meters out, which was really positive. So we've had sort of, I would say, really good initial results from our summer program. We've got another 29 holes to release. Those will come out probably in about 2 weeks. We'll have another batch, and then maybe every 3 or 4 weeks after that. So pretty much from now until the end of 2026. I mean, there's that much drilling. So it's going to be a very newsy, drill-driven, advancement. Generally in resource deals, it's when the resource value in the ground goes up, that's when the stock goes up. So that's our mission, right? Obviously, create more value for our shareholders. So we're, advancing the resource and growing the resource in the ground, and then Mr. Market being super cooperative and the resource is growing in the commodity side as well, right? There's two ways to grow the resource. You can find more of it, or the commodity price can go up. And in our case, the line zone is 45% copper at 55% precious metals. So about 40% platinum and palladium, 10% gold, 5% silver. So that side of it's gone up by more than 50%. The copper is up about 8% or so since we raised the money in the end of February. Stock is relatively, it's up maybe 10 cents from then. So it's been sort of, it went down a bit, with the whole tariff boondoggle, and eventually it crawled its way back up, as Canadian stocks often do. When the fall comes, people get serious about making money and they start to, make make investments, and we're starting to rip again. So that seems to be a thing for us. We had done that the year before. We had, I think, financed at 66 cents. We got $1.25 because of the way the markets work in Canada with the flow through credits and stuff. Stock went down to 50 and then came back to almost $2. And this year we financed it at $50 million at $1.45. Stock went down to, I think, $1.01, and now it's like $1.50-ish, sort of in that range. And yeah, it seems to be moving in the right direction. And we've got the news to support it, so we're keen to get out there and spread the word.
Terry, thank you for that. Appreciate the update. Wishing you guys continued luck here on the program as you guys continue to have news flow throughout the rest of the year here on various updates on the project. Before we get into maybe future plans in 2026, I want to hold up on that for just a moment. But you guys back in July, you guys closed on an acquisition of adjacent grounds to the NISK project, expanding the land portfolio quite significantly by about 167 square kilometers. Talk about that deal and the importance of continuity for the NISK project.
With our discovery at NISK, we sort of changed the understanding, of the geological mapping of that country, of that province, of that area. And so we're pretty much the only guy on the planet that knows the recipe for success in this area, what it takes geologically, what it takes geophysically, what it takes geochemically. So we recognized that, hey, we had this window of opportunity where we knew a pile of information that the market didn't know. So we looked regionally and said, hey, the reality in these things are like this discovery is a once in a 20-year discovery. There's only been 20 of them in the history of the world, so it's really sort of amazing. But they typically come in bunches in terms of additional pods or mines that come collectively together in a region. So we'd expect Sudbury had 33 mines. We'd expect there to be multiple mines here. And we had, we believe Lion's going to become a mine. We believe NISK will become a mine. So we thought to ourselves, do we have all we need here? And the answer was no. So we looked around and we basically identified these 8 regional targets. And through our acquisition program of the lift package, the first one we announced in July, and the hydrolands, which we announced about 2 weeks ago, we've now got 7 of the 8. So we're really stoked about that. Now, there's no guarantee that those, 7 of the 8 will be, more mines, but they're highly prospective. It's the right recipe, and all you can do. It's sort of like playing poker when you're mining. You want to play with the best cards, and when you get the best cards, you want to go for the pot. So basically, we've got the best cards now. We've got the land packages we want. We've got the capital to actually explore them properly. We know what the recipe is for success, so we intend to get on with that. So we're really stoked about that. That was, and actually, our strategy on the land, like when the stock fell off after the financing, we thought, and the market was not ripe for, trying to get out there and be aggressive with IR and push the stock. We felt that that wasn't the time. And we sort of thought to ourselves, well, let's use this sort of pause in the stock to our advantage. Let's go to our neighbors who, are, generally in lithium and a market that's even more aggressively challenged than the broader mining market, and let's see if we can make a good buy. And we made a really great acquisition from Lyft, of those land packages. It was a good fair trade for both sides. I mean, we tried to buy it in cash. They're smart guys, and they wanted a piece of the pie and get some of the upside, so they took the stock, which was smart. So it was a good move on them. They created a lot of liquidity for their company going forward. So you want them to work out for both sides. In this case, it did. But we felt for sure it was key for us. The other package that we talked about 2 weeks ago that we hadn't really talked about before was the hydrolands. The Lion Zone, where we're at is, if you look at a map of our projects, it's on our PowerPoint on our website at powermetallic.com, you can easily find, sort of our borders, and you can see that the, southern tip of Lion just is right on this, what was called the hydrolands. So these were lands that weren't staked by anyone, but they had a restriction from Quebec Hydro. This restriction came from, probably 70 years ago when Quebec Hydro was, developing James Bay, and they had restrictions on so much of it, the area up there. No practical use for the restriction, but it was there historically. And just as it is with stupid laws and stuff like that, sometimes they just stay there because there's nobody's really has a motivation to get rid of them. So we clearly had the motivation because we knew in our mind very highly likely that the second half of Lion is out in the hydrolands. So we thought to ourselves, well, how do we get this? We thought probably the best chance we have of getting Hydro-Quebec to cooperate with us on this is if we got the support and approval of the James Bay Cree. And to their credit, we went to the chief and to the council, and we sort of said, "Hey guys, look, we think there's a really good chance we can get this project to commercial status. It's going fantastic, but it's likely that it's going to grow over here, and that this will be something we'll need to really make it work. So, can you support us with Hydro Quebec?" And And to their credit, they did. So they've been super supportive of us. Trying to pull the land package together. And so we went to Hydro-Quebec, explained the purpose of it. They got it, and they were cooperative. And then eventually we kicked it back to the government, because that's how it goes. And then it takes some time for the government to post it. And then we got some land automatically, because it was an extension of our existing land claims that had been cut historically. And then the rest that we applied for, we just found out, about a few days ago on that. So we got all the land we wanted there, which was really amazing. And between Lift and the hydro lands, we feel like we're in phenomenal shape on the land side, and we couldn't be happier. So it's over 400% increase in our land package. So pretty significant. And it's not just the quantity of the land, it's the quality of the land. We think there's some super high grade targets there. And in fact, we purposely didn't drill a number of key targets for us, because it was too close to either the lift package or the hydrolands package. And we thought, gee, if we drill them and we're successful, then we got to disclose it. That could negatively impact our ability to get that land. So, we don't know for sure. We haven't drilled it, so we can't honestly say. But I would say that we're highly confident that those drilling targets will prove productive. And so that's why we did what we did. We sort of targeted some other areas that ultimately needed exploring anyway, and we've done well with there as well. But we definitely left our, I would say, our AAA targets to be drilled now, which is exciting. So going forward, this next quarter is going to be super exciting.
Well, congratulations on getting that package together, and then also the work on the community and government relations side to establish this package and get that done, and definitely smart of the vendor to get on board with some of the stock here as well. I think that's very useful for them, and also have a good sticky shareholder on your side as well. With that, maybe we just tie right in here with some of these targets that you guys had held up on now that this land acquisition is completed, and looking into 2026, Terry. What would you guys like to accomplish on that front, on the expiration for testing those targets, spilling into 2026, maybe beyond this campaign? And then also in 2026, what other things would you like to accomplish, if everything goes well?
Sure. So, the first thing we're actually drilling it right now. One of the lessons we learned in drilling at the line zone was that up until 500 meters depth or so, the helicopter rigs were fine. They would, hit the targets we were aiming for, and test things properly, and so that was good. Below that, and the last 4 or 5 holes were below that, there was a significant deviation in the targeting. And then we initially, the first time it happened, we thought, well, maybe it was just bad rock, and we tried a different angle of attack, but it still didn't work. We still couldn't get where we wanted to go. So you'll notice in our press release 2 weeks ago, we announced we had extended the line zone by considerable amount, like it was over 100 meters, and but we only had the disseminated part of it, not the massive or semi-massive, which is really where it contains most of the high-end juice that would become legendary for the 7%, 32 meter stuff that had been missed. So we had 1.5% disseminated, which is obviously still very, very good, but we missed the good stuff. So one of two things could have happened. One, either the line zone got extended and somehow the semi-massive and massive, which had been there for several hundred meters, stops, and the disseminated continues, which would be hard to sort of explain geologically. Or most likely what happened is we just came in under the target, and didn't hit our objective where we sort of know they should be. So now we sort of identified that as a problem, sometime midsummer, and started to take corrective steps. So we built sort of land bridges and stuff like that up there to allow us to get land rigs in there. So we're drilling now with land rigs on Lion as opposed to helicopter rigs, and 24/7, 365 access, other than the exceptional periods. So we basically are drilling the Lion extensions to prove that the Lion is still continuing to grow further, south along strike. So generally speaking, you'd expect these, discoveries like Lion, if the width is X, the depth could be as much as 10X. Typically would be 10X. So right now the width is about 450 meters, and we're about maybe 600 meters down. So still a long ways to go, and we think there's a considerable amount of ore going further south along strike. So these holes will sort of prove that up. I think that'll be exciting. So that'll be coming early. The other things that we did is we drilled a very deep hole between very close to the lift grounds and very close to the hydro grounds, very just above it. I think if you look at the map on our site, I think it's colored in green, and that hole is about 1,000 meters, probably true depth, maybe about 750 or so. But at the bottom of that hole, we've been using borehole EM as a key scientific guide for our drilling. The borehole EM basically turns your 6-inch diameter hole into like 150 meters by sending an electric pulse out, and this pulse reacts to the sulfide bodies that are within 150 meters. So when we see those sulfide bodies, we know that that sulfide in our area has been carrying minerals, and that's what we want to target. So we've been doing that, and it's been no false positives. So sometimes with this, you get graphite or chrome or something like that gives you a false positive, but in our case, that's not happening. So that's been really good. So beneath us, about 150, 200 meters beneath us, is our biggest target that we've yet seen. We're super stoked about that. So we'll be, drilling that very soon when we get back in there. Just a matter of getting the rig logistics straight. I think it might be like November when we starting on that, but that's going to be super exciting. And then now that we've got the hydrolands, generally our thinking is, line zone 1 is a natural fold, the way we believe it to be. The second half of that fold is in all likelihood on the hydrolands. So we'll be testing those very early and looking for some excitement there. So we've got, no shortage of targets, and luckily we've got no shortage of rigs. We've got 4 rigs on the site now. We'll be expanding to 6 over the quarter. Yeah, it's going to be all systems are blazing here, in the fall program for us, and we'll look to carry forward that into the winter. We've got, as I said, the overall plan is 100,000 meters between now and the end of 26, all fully funded. So it's going to be we're going to see how big this beast can be. That's really what we got the money for. Obviously, with the super high grade, I mean, people say, analysts are suggesting we're somewhere between 8 to 13 million tons, between 5 to 7% copper equivalent, pick a number. We think we're going to find a lot more than that. Generally, these projects historically have all produced major mines, i.e., mines capable of producing 1 million tons of contained metal, and sometimes more than 10 million tons. So it really is exciting to get to discover a project like this, and we're super stoked about what we've got before us.
Terry, it sounds like all hands on deck here, and you guys got lots of work here on the exploration front to continue to expand this. So, looking forward to seeing the news here in the coming months and into 2026. In parallel, I suspect you guys are looking down the road a little bit here as to maybe some early economic studies as well as metallurgical testing to confirm processing means and methods. Any comments on where you guys intend to take that bit of work as well?
Yeah, so we announced about 4 weeks ago a first phase of the metallurgical testing, and it was very successful, like a 93% reporting to the copper concentrate of the minerals, which is what you want to hear. And so that info was needed before we selected our metallurgical partner to do the full met study, and we selected SGS, and that's on way now, and we'd expect to get that full met study out in Q1, hopefully early Q1. And that'll act as a guide, we think, for the economics of the project. Generally, when the projects are growing this quick, as ours is, you don't want to do a 43-101 too early, because people will pigeonhole you with a number when in fact you're growing that number substantially. So it's best, what we do is we put all of our drill collars or azimuths and assays out there for the public, whether they be, sort of analysts from the banks or investment banks or the funds that can, do their own leapfrog, or independent geologists that just, can have the capacity to do this. They can, they can come up with their own economic model for the ore body and mineralized area, and then they now. What we do want to do is give them the proper met study so they can apply the correct recovery rates to each mineral. Generally speaking, we're running at an 80% recovery rate in our copper equivalency numbers when we report those. Just to get some guide on that, we had talked to Robert Friedland, who's obviously one of our biggest investors, been the lead investor the last 2 rounds. And I remember before he invested his first round, I asked him, I said, Robert, what do you think of the metallurgy of this thing? And he says, listen, he said, we have Platreef, which is a much lower grade, polymetallic grade discovery in South Africa. And we've brought it to production, and we're getting high 80s, low 90% recoveries. And he says, I think, obviously with you got, a higher grade rock, you should definitely get there. So I think we're going to get there too. And that's what our early results suggest. But let's prove it. Let's get it out there so it's no longer guesswork. And then people can use that to plug it in with their assumptions on the mineralized body size that they can generate by using the data we post transparently on all of our drill collars. So this has been done by Philo and by Great Bear. So this is sort of the way forward. Probably we'll do a economic study end of next year, maybe the first quarter of the following year, because we don't feel compelled to do that at this moment. We feel compelled to find a lot more resource and get that data out there and then de-risk it with met studies. So that's the strategy.
I think that's the right way to approach it. Is no need immediately to do that. That exploration focus, metallurgical work, huge key. We want to get all these metals out, get them processed. And very, very important on methodology, means and methods there. Well, looking forward to seeing some of the results come out on that, and maybe sounds like maybe some type of thought into an initial economic study somewhere in the neighborhood of 2027. We'll see how things go, and who knows, maybe you guys never even get to that, Terry, the way things go here, especially if you guys make continued expansion discovery. That's going to be a big deal here, as potential folks look at what you guys are up to and the interest level increasing as the time goes on here with the campaign. So good information on that. On capital structure, Terry, give us an update here. Since we last spoke, a few things have changed. You guys also closed up on a financing back around the last time we spoke, but just remind the audience here, and of course, we have some new audience listening in. They
Yep.
probably want to know about this for the first time, but give us an update on the current shares outstanding, the cash on
Sure.
hand, and where you would expect to be with cash on hand, post this current campaign. And then also, I think it's important, key shareholders on the roster.
Yeah, sure. So about 232 million shares outstanding right now, 270 or so fully diluted. There's about between the options and warrants that are in the money, probably that I would add another 15 million to the till. We had over 40 million in the till at the end of the last quarter. So certainly well financed, cash wise. Our burn rate is basically think of it as 360 a meter. So we have 100,000 meters program. We're going to spend 36 million bucks on that. So you can do the math on the cash minus that cost and get a sense for what would have left at the end of it. That's a good way to look at that. Generally, the other thing that I think that's significant that we're planning to do is we've said we've applied to the New York Stock Exchange. We're hopeful over the next 3 weeks to get the approval from the New York Stock Exchange and to be trading within, I would say, let's say 6 weeks. Could be sooner, but that would sort of be a good timeline. And we think that's going to be a milestone for us too, because generally, the Canadian markets are perking up a little bit, but there's still been sort of a struggle there. As you know, we've had our issues over the years. I mean, Canada used to raise $100 billion in equity across all of its markets all the time. Last year, we only raised $20 billion. So the capital markets are struggling in Canada. So getting to a better capital market is part of our mission. We've been down. We've done a number of non-deal roadshows in New York to a very enthusiastic response from generalists, fund investors. I literally haven't seen mining guys in several years. So as you'd expect with gold rocking and silver rocking, presidents and prime ministers talking about critical minerals, obviously now there's finally interest in mining for the first time in a very long time. So I think great time to be moving to New York. Several Canadian companies have done that with great success. So we expect to follow in those footsteps and do it soon. And so, catalyst-wise for new investors, it's a phenomenal time to be looking at Power Metallic when you think about, the smartest mining in money put in 50 million bucks, for this, and many of them the second or third time they invested. So we got Robert Freeland, obviously a legend, running Ivanhoe, Rob McEwen, who runs McEwen Mining now, but was the great founder of Goldcorp, Gina Reinhardt. Got in total 15 billionaires in the deal. This is how we finance ourselves. I would go around and do like I did last week in California when I went to 7 different, lunch or dinner functions, met 150 people. There was a lot of wealth in the room. That's how you meet people that can write checks that are, they're not going to trade you for 10 cents. They're looking to find a deal that they're going to get multiple times their money on, and they have a vision that they can sort of see why it would go that way. And when we raised that money, that $50 million, the reason why we raised it was basically twofold. One, we showed them how cheap we were relative to our peers. We gave them, and there's examples of that in our slide deck on our site. We showed, our peer group in Adriatic minerals metals, since they've been sold. I can definitely talk about sold for $1.5 billion. Very similar size deposit in a way, similar grade, different metals, but sort of fairly, in an equivalency term, very $500 rocks, and so we certainly at least have that, maybe more. And it's just sold for $1.5 billion US, and we're 230, maybe we're 250, something like that. So when I say 20 cents on the dollar, it's literally there. I mean, they were further advanced for sure, but there was a definite gap there. They were in Serbia, we're in Quebec. So I think that was one thing that people felt, that we were very cheap relative to our peers, and that still remains the case today, which is great for the audiences listening. The second thing that I think they felt, we have another slide where we have this triangle slide where we have like nickel in one corner, copper in the other, and PGs at the top, or even add gold and silver to it, call it noble metals. And generally speaking, this deposit we discovered was initially a nickel deposit. And then when we found this copper precious metal zone on top of it, it transformed our thinking into what type of deposit it was. So it went from a run-of-the-mill nickel sulfide to becoming an orthomagmatic copper PGE nickel project. And luckily, we've got a healthy kicker of gold and silver, 10% gold, 5% silver. So it was transformative. And there's only been, as I said, 20 of these discovered in the history of the world. We'd be like the 21st. Last one was Anglo-American in Finland with Sakatti. Before that, Voisey's Bay with Friedland. And, but Marinsky's Reef, Norilsk, the greatest mine of them all in Russia, is very analogous to what we've got here. So we've got this amazing discovery. And one of the observations the scientist made, Dr. Steve Beresford, who's he's a board member now. He was chief geo at First Quantum at MMG, and then chief scientific officer at IGO, and probably 3 successful multi-billion-dollar polymetallic companies. So this guy's done more polymetallic exploration than almost any human on the planet. Is probably the greatest mine in the polymetallic world. If he's not, he's certainly in that conversation, and he's been guiding our exploration advances. So what's interesting is Steve made an observation. He said that if you find 1 ton of copper in these projects, on average, you're going to find 5 tons of nickel sulfide. Okay, and at NISK right now, we're about 1.5 copper to 1 nickel, soon to be 2 copper to 1 nickel. So we're finding a lot more copper, which is great, but we're going to eventually find a lot more nickel. And this nickel sulfide we're going to find isn't going to be the stuff we found that, previously. We've got what I call almost a fringe discovery that's we call it a fringe discovery. It's still a nice discovery. It's probably about 8.5 million tons, around 1.25% nickel equivalent, which is maybe 0.9 nickel, 0.555 copper, and 1 gram of PGs. So that, we think, is connected to the line zone. There's 5.5 kilometers between them, and we think that most likely the visual that people should think of it is that if you took the palm of your hand, and the palm is the nickel sulfide, and sometime over the course of time, some hydrothermal action came, picked up the copper sulfides, brought them to the surface, and they dissipated in these pipes, like the line zone. We'll find other pipes, we believe. We think we're on the verge of doing that right now. And generally, the math, the money in polymetallics is finding the pipes and then drilling down to the depth where ultimately the big nickel sulfide project is. And you can reverse the math on the pipes to discover how rich the nickel sulfide body will be. If you do that on the line zone, you'll know that we don't believe it's possible that the original NISK discovery of nickel could have fathered the line zone. It has to be much richer. So we're looking for 2% nickel, 2% copper, grams of PGEs. That's really what produced the line zone. We haven't found it yet, but we've got some ideas where it's at now. And so that's exciting. So generally speaking, I expect this thing to get a lot bigger. And it's for those 2 reasons: the fact that we were cheap, and we're going to get a lot bigger. That's really what was, compelling, and why, last February was not a hot mining market. We raised $50 million from pretty much the smartest mining money on the planet. Right now, investors or listeners to your show can pay just a little bit more. And now we're coming out with news. We've got all the new land. Obviously, the market's even more buoyant. I mean, as I said to you, on the commodity side, the copper's up, I think, about 8% since we closed that capital, and the precious metals over 50%. The stock is just up maybe a nickel or a dime. So it's very early days, and we think we're going to have a serious fall and winter rally, as it should be, because the value is there.
Absolutely. Some interesting numbers that you're talking about there, Terry, and definitely interested to see what further results bring here on the drill side. Very good information, and thank you for highlighting off the shareholders that you do have there. Some very key people that are involved in offering some assistance as well. That's always good. And then congratulations on looking to list on the NYSE. One follow up on that is the intent there with the NYSE Amex, which is a good choice. I actually like that one over NASDAQ. Is the goal also to bump from the TSXV up to the big board TSX?
You know what? We looked at that, and honestly, from our perspective, there's no observable benefit to do so. It actually increases costs. So, no, I think we've looked at it, and unless there's some new set of benefits for us, I don't see the benefit. We you know it's easier to operate on the TSXV. NYSE is going to give us great exposure, gives us worldwide. Like I was in Hong Kong maybe last February, March. One of the things the investors over there were asking was, "Hey, we really want to, we don't really like investing in Canada anymore. When are you going to get on a U.S. exchange?" So I think that's going to be very, very helpful for liquidity. I think most of the liquidity will eventually move down to New York because they're just, I mean, that's where the money is. I mean, these funds are huge, and then like right now, just so you get a perspective on New York, it used to be up to 10% of it was in mining. Now it's less than 1%. So if there be a resurgence in generalist investment interest in mining, which it's undoubtedly happening because we're switching into a commodity cycle, if it goes to 2 or 3%, that's like triple the amount of money coming into the space. That's huge. And the winners are going to be the companies that have really great projects that are undervalued, like ours. So I think it's a perfect time for us to get listed down there. And we've already had good early indications that we're going to get support. And I think in stocks there was sort of like a $300 million market cap US. Once you break through that, then the thing can gap to $1 billion pretty quickly. We're punching through that right now. I think we're going to make our push this fall, and we'll see. We're excited about the move to New York for sure.
That's the key thing here. A good move. TSXV versus TSX. I mean, I think that's a kind of a longer conversation, but definitely we've heard it both ways, different reasons as to maybe some of those moves and the better things between those exchanges. But the key thing is here is getting down into the U.S. on the Amex is a fantastic move. So appreciate your guys' efforts on that. On staffing, Terry, the company recently announced the appointment of Seamus O'Regan to the board of directors. Talk about that appointment and what he brings to the table.
Yeah, he was former federal minister of natural resources in Canada, and he also was federal minister of Indigenous Affairs, and he had several other portfolios. He's a Saint of Exeter. He went to St. Francis Xavier, where I did, so we've known each other for a while. He's a very plugged-in, obviously politician, but he's got a lot of exposure and understanding of the natural resource space, and of course the issues that impact it, like Indigenous relations. So we feel that as we go to to build mines here, that having somebody that knows how to navigate the government relations side to act as a sort of a sounding board to help us, guide us in that respect, that made sense. And so we didn't have anybody like that on the board. And I'd met Seamus, just we had reconnected at a conference where we're both members of the Trilateral Commission. We just started chatting, and then we realized, wow, that he was moving on from politics, and I thought, wow, this could be a great fit for him and for us. And so that was the strategy. Let's get people on there that can help us ultimately build this thing in an effective way. Like, I mean, what's interesting in Canada, and maybe the audience doesn't know this, but if you have a critical mineral mine, you get a 30% tax credit from the government federally, and 25% for the government provincially to help you build. So that's huge, right? I mean, if you get do a feasibility study and you got half the money coming from the government, the other half you can get from the bank. So you can get this thing built. In addition to that, there's other programs that are now becoming available federally that could be very beneficial to us. For example, the federal government's making a real serious outreach to the Indigenous First Nations of our country and encouraging them to invest earlier in resource projects. While we're not looking to raise any capital at the moment, we are open to having a conversation with the James Bay Cree or the Cree government on investing, and they're quite interested. And so there's a program that's being developed by the federal government to facilitate that investment, where the Feds would fund it, First Nations would take the upside and wouldn't have the downside. So there's some steps there to make that work, but that's something we're certainly exploring, and we think that would be beneficial, for the project, for the region, for the country, and so that having Seamus involved to help us in those conversations will certainly be helpful as well. So lots of good reasons to have added them, and we're happy to have them on board.
Absolutely. This is a very good networking and expertise move. So that's great to see that, Terry, as you guys look ahead here on some of the things you'll be needing and assistance on these various fronts. The government incentives there, it's good to hear about those things because, as you know, when you look at Canada from a provincial perspective, some of these provinces are struggling. Some of them are well endowed and have a very pro-mining attitude, which obviously those provinces have supported the federal government quite well. So it's good to see Quebec coming in and looking at some of these things. Obviously, Ontario, Alberta, Saskatchewan, some of these other areas, BC, of course, definitely supportive. So good to hear on that the government's warming up to natural resource development as a fantastic long-term source of wealth, expertise, and careers that are lifelong. So that's good information there. Well, Terry, outside of NISK, of course, you guys also have a number of projects in various jurisdictions still. We just saw recently you guys were awarded some exploration grounds in Saudi Arabia. Talk about that.
Yeah, so let's talk about two things: the Saudi Arabia and Chilean metals. So we spun out Chilean metals end of February of last year, where we still own half, and our shareholders, as of the end of February, own the other half. So Chilean's got some exciting projects in the Golden Triangle in BC and in Chile, very close to the legendary Candelaria mine. As an example, they're drill ready to go. And we're just about through the listing process now with that on the TSXV. Expect to have that out, hope in October, could possibly go into November, but it's imminent. That'll give that its own shot at life, and we think some exciting exploration opportunities there. So there's that. And then we developed a subsidiary called Power Metallic Arabia, where we're 100% owner of. And we did this to accommodate our winning a concession in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for called Jebel Badawaan, and it's about 200 square kilometers. It's a very prospective VMS. It's sort of on strike, about 30 kilometers away as a buried gold mine. Very similar looking stuff here. Not a lot of science available there yet. That's why we were brought in. I'd met the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia at Beaver Creek 3 years ago, I guess. 3 Beaver Creeks ago, I guess, be a better way of saying it. They were looking for explorers to come down there and to explore. And of course, we were just getting going at NISK and having some success, but it was, it was too early for us to get engaged. But we talked. A year later, we came back, and of course, the Lion Zone was the talk of the show, and the Kingdom was quite keen to have us make a bid on some of their projects they were posting. And Saudi has decided, like, it's one of these regions where obviously a super successful country, right? Oil and gas is obviously dominant, but tourism is big there too. So those are the two big industries. So mining is going to be their third biggest industry, and it's almost at zero right now. So they're making a tremendous amount of investment, and the reason why is that the Arabian Shield is expected to be one of the more prolific formations on Earth for mines. Just lacked study for 50 years. So they've decided this is going to be now a priority for the nation. And so that's why they're encouraging getting explorers in there, and they've got great programs. So, for example, on our program, when we spend $4 million on that ground, they'll give us $2 million back. So there's, that type of exploration kicker. They said to us, look, Terry, come down. If you bid on a project, it's basically on a technical basis that you'll be awarded the project. If you get the award, we'll introduce you to the top 5 family offices in Saudi. Well, there's an offer you don't get every day as a junior who's always struggling for cash. So looked at the projects, looked at 6 projects, bid on the one, won the one, and then we've gone through the process now to secure. There's a fairly there's a number of steps to take advantage of that. We just came back. We were down there for the last month, just about wrapped it up now, and we'll soon start exploring. So they introduced us to the top 5 family offices. The smallest group at $50 billion, the biggest group 110 billion. We made some serious progress in discussions with them. We'll probably announce some partnership there, on the project, and we'll keep Power Metallic, 100% for the time being. Ultimately, I would say our objective down there is we would eventually like to take Power Metallic Arabia public in Saudi. People don't know this, but Saudi has the 7th biggest stock exchange in the world. There's mining companies on there that would be they're about a billion and a half in value, and here peers would be trading at 150 million. So clearly, it's a frothy capital market. So getting projects up and running down there could give you some access to very amazing capital markets for growth. The other thing that happens down there is if you find a project and you do a feasibility study, they'll give you 80% of the capital to build the mine at 1% interest. Don't get that everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's a spectacular opportunity. It's early days. I say to people, look, you'd buy Power Metallic today because of NISK and its potential to become a world class, mining region. It's going to be big, and if you believe in that story, then buy the stock. The nice benefit about Power Metallic is that there's some other kickers in it that could augment your returns a lot. The Chilean portfolio, and of course the ultimately the Saudi Arabian interests. So they're seedlings. We've planted them. We think they're going to grow robustly, and we're there to support them. And we think that in mining, that's what you have to do. It takes time to grow these things. We've been at NISK for 4 years now. It's coming into something. We're just early days in Saudi, but 4 years from now, it could easily be, in my mind, could be as important as NISK is.
Yeah, well, thank you for going through that, Terry. I think definitely it's a jurisdiction that's increasing in interest. We know of a number of major players that are starting to come in there as well, which and are associated and have talked to. Definitely, it's an interesting place here and lots of potential as they open up the country there and continue to make really focus on the key wealth building industries. Tourism there isn't going to cut it. You and I both know that oil and natural resource development is going to be the key area there for Saudi Arabia, and I think they fully realize that. And some of the funds coming out of the Middle East are substantial in size, and they definitely have an interest in projects globally. So it's great to see that other area of capital. And congratulations on that front and those introductions. Wishing you guys luck over there as you guys determine the strategy over there for Saudi Arabia. Also, Chilean metals. Thank you for the update on that one as well. That was one that's been sitting there in the shareholders' portfolio as well from earlier this year. So that'd be great to see that up and running. Well, let's leave it there for now, Terry, and I'll give you this last opportunity to make a quick mention. For potential investors who are listening in, the company has a market capitalization now of about 350 million Canadian dollars. Why should Power Metallic Mines be considered within the institutional, family office, and retail investors' portfolio at this point?
Yeah, 2 big reasons. One is we trade at a deep discount to our peers. I mean, there's no obvious reason, really. That we should be, in my mind, triple where we're at, just based upon what we've already found. And then the other reason why people should really be excited about Power Metallic is we've made this once in a 20-year type of discovery. And all those discoveries have historically been much, much bigger than we are today. So we're fully funded to actually get much bigger. It's highly likely with the ground that we've got that we're going to get a lot bigger. So there, we've got technology that's working with us. We've got world-class explorers working for us, finding it. We've demonstrated that we can find it and are delivering the goods. So you should believe we're going to grow. So we're undervalued and we're going to grow, and we got a robust capital market. It's all systems go on Power Metallic.
And Terry, for further information, how can interested parties get in touch with the company?
Yeah, easy to do so. Basically, go to our site. You can register there. You can even, ultimately, obviously, you'll get part of our, weekly, monthly newsletter programs, keeping you posted, any news releases, etc. If you want to speak to management, there's actually there's an ability to do that through that process. So we're very accessible. We believe in transparency. We post all of our drill collars, azimuths, assays. we're trying to be very communicative to our core audience. We do a podcast once a quarter with our key geos, and we walk people through what we're doing, how we're seeing things, the results, discussions, in very much a sort of a Q&A sort of approach, so people can feel like they're really getting to know us and what we're doing and why we're doing it. So I think it's a great opportunity to get involved with a company that's growing in the right way, and is very open and transparent with their shareholder base.
Terry, we appreciate the update. Best of luck with progress, and we're looking forward to having you come back in the coming months to update.
Sounds great, Andrew. Have a great day. Cheers for now.